I hope that your listeners will remember, we're not promised tomorrow. Get your priorities straight, because if your family needs, because I think we're so busy about planning for the future and making sure we're okay for the future. Well, sometimes the future can be taken from us. So how about being present and happy with what you have?
So imagine this. You're moving along in life, everything is going fine. You're making progress in your work, you're making progress in your life, but all of a sudden, you get diagnosed with cancer. I can only imagine it will be a very scary experience. But our next guest, Maria Reilly, shares with us that even when you get diagnosed with something like cancer, like she did, you have to make sure that you maintain a positive mental attitude. You have to have a sense of optimism. You have to see yourself on the other side being cured and being healed, because that is what is going to help you pull through something like this. Cancer can be very difficult for the person themselves to deal with. Cancer is also very difficult for the family members to deal with as well. So we wanted to bring her onto the podcast to know more about her journey, how she dealt with it, how she maintained a positive sense of attitude, and what are the things that helped her get through it, and also what are the things that helped her family get through it as well. So this is a very inspiring podcast. This was one of those podcast interviews that I got really emotional, because she truly does have a very inspiring story. If you do like it, please do share it. So now please help me welcome Maria Reilly to the podcast so that we can get to know more about her journey. Hi, Maria. Welcome to the podcast. I am so glad that you are able to join us today. Knowing you at a professional level, doing business dealings with you, I got to learn a little bit more about, how you had shared some of the health challenges that you had been through dealing with cancer. And I know that's a very difficult thing, but one of the things I really like about you is that you have this sense of optimism. You have this, sense of positivity in you. And that is unique, because what happens is that, especially, everybody's going through some type of challenge that we know. And what happens is that when people go through challenges, after some time, they have, they have a lack of optimism. They don't have positivity in them. And that's something that is truly unique about you. And I appreciate that and I admire it. So I wanted to get you on the podcast to get to know a little bit more about your story, so that we can together help inspire other people. So welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm very good. And AJ, thank you for inviting me and being able to share my story with you and with anyone who is listening out there, because life isn't easy. And, and we all have choices, and it depends, things happen to us, and then we have to decide how we react to what happens. So I always say, when I wake up in the morning, I choose to be happy. I'm so grateful for the day and just so grateful to be with my family. So, but thank you for having me.
Pleasure is all mine. And you know what it is? What you said, it sounds actually basic, but these are the type of things, they're basic, but yet so many people forget about it. Like just being thankful, like, waking up in the morning. That's something that I have started to, do a few years ago as well, is to have a practice of gratitude in the morning that actually sets the tone of the day just right. So, what I wanted to do was start off by getting to know a little bit more about where you grew up, how was it like, and your dreams, your ambitions growing up, and can we talk a little bit about that?
Okay. Well, my family is originally from Ecuador, South America. Wow. And my father is the oldest of 7 children. Mm-hmm. And he migrated to the United States and got married to my mom. And then when she got pregnant with me, they really didn't have family here. So they sent my mom back with me in her belly. And I actually was born in Ecuador, South America. So I have dual citizenship. My grandfather, who is my dad's dad, he was always an entrepreneur. He, distributed coffee like on the wholesale level, and he had factories back in Ecuador. And so that spirit of entrepreneurship really exists in our family. And then my mom, after she was done, there's three sisters. So after she was done raising the three of us, she was a hairstylist. So they have such a great story, my parents. So my dad started out as a worker in an electronics company. It was family owned, where they make all the circuit boards for back then, I guess, the servers, because that was the 60s. My mom she went to cosmetology school and she became a hairdresser. So we lived in this little town, Watertown in Massachusetts, and there's, you call it an anchor store. So like say Publix here in Florida. So there was a Star Market, and everything that was in that shopping center would be, do really, really well. So there was a beauty shop in there called Accent Beauty Salon. So my mom used to walk there with me and she would say, oh, I wish I could work in this salon. Well, not only did she work there, but my father bought it for her one day. And then yeah, right?
That is nice.
Yeah. So my father started out working in this factory, and the owner took him under his wing. My father became the president of the company. And back then, he sponsored so many friends and family from South America with jobs so they could come to the United States, change their family. And that's how my parents raised me, that the next generation should be a little bit better off than the one before. So that's
a very neat idea. That's nice. And not only that, your father, that sounds like a really an immigrant success story, right? It's just, you come into US and you build yourself up from, learning the job and then becoming a president of a company. And that's awesome. It takes a lot of hard work, and you do it for your family, and that's nice. And you do it for yourself. Congratulations. That's nice.
Yeah, thank you. But I have incredible parents. My father isn't alive anymore, but his spirit definitely lives in all of us. And my mom, she's still with us, but it's funny because you asked me like when I was a little girl. Okay, so at 11 years old, I used to go work at the shop on Saturday, and I'm a girly girl. I love to have my hair done and my makeup done and be put together, but I was not interested in learning how to do hair. What I wanted to do was run the register and learn how to do payroll. So my father taught me that at the age of 11 and 12. So i.e., look, I'm a banker now today, right? So I've always felt very loved in my family. We were always a close-knit family. And then especially with all my aunts and uncles, and I have countless cousins, okay? And I think it really came home to me one day when I was watching that movie, my Fat Greek Wedding, where the girl was like telling the American guy, her boyfriend, saying, Greeks marry Greeks. I have 27 first cousins. Everybody's in everybody's business. And then I started thinking about it. I go, how many first cousins do I have? And you know what? I stopped the count at 50, okay? At 50 first cousins, because my mom is also, yes, my mom is one of 6 children. Okay, so there's endless with family. So I'm all about family. But back to what you were saying. So then we migrated to Florida, and this is where I went to college here, and then I met my husband in college, and I had my daughter Caitlin, and then life changed for me. So there's been different challenges. So after being with my husband for 19 years, we parted ways, friendly but parted. And then at that point, I just wanted to make sure that I could take care of myself and my daughter. And I was working at the bank at that time, and I transitioned to mortgage banking. And the reason I did mortgage banking was, number one, I had flexibility with my schedule. My daughter was 14 at the time. So when you ask me, when I wake up in the morning, how do I choose to be happy? Well, what I can tell anyone that's listening is you have to really find your purpose and your why. And I know a lot of successful people will talk about their why, but the why is so important, because if you keep your eye on that, and, I knew the mortgage business could give me a lot of financial freedom, but I wasn't interested in that. I was more interested in being at every volleyball game for my daughter, whether it was at home or out of state. And it was funny because back then, let's see, this was back in 2000, early 2000s, okay? And we didn't have the technology that we have now. So I think back then I even had a flip phone, you know? So I would tell the moms, okay, so I'd have to meet the moms at 3:00 on a Friday. And one of the moms had one of those big conversion vans. And I would say, okay, just book the hotel room. Here's my credit card. Tell me what time I have to be there. I'll be in the back of the van. And I was taking hand applications. And then I would tell the client, I will call you back on Monday when I get back. So I could be with my daughter. And so fast forward. So I created a very successful mortgage business. My first 30 days, I cried and cried. And then my little daughter, you know, they say from mouths of babes. So what happened with her was my first month, I actually wanted to throw in the towel. And she said to me, she goes, Mom, your job is great. I see you all the time. You pick me up after school. You're at all my games. And I'm thinking, yeah, because I'm not doing anything right now. There's no loans in the pipeline, you know? And then she said to me, she goes, Mom, I don't think you've given this a chance, you know? But what do I know? I'm just 13, you know? And so, you know what? Sometimes it takes your children to kind of, you know, like make the light bulb go on. And I said, you know what? And I never felt like sense of peace when she said that to me. And I said, you know what? I made the right decision. And before I left my banking W-2 job to come to the mortgage side, I really prayed about it. And I was just very faithful. And I just said, Lord, if this is where you want me, open the doors. If you don't want me here, then don't open the doors. And all the doors started opening one after another. So my second month in, I think I closed $2 million. And then my first year in the business, I closed $22 million.
Wow. That is amazing. That's just amazing.
And I just haven't looked back, and I'm in my 19th year now. And now I have, you know, and I think we're getting a little bit off script here, but
no, it's fine. It's fine.
Okay.
We're enjoying it.
Okay. But my whole family works for me. So I trained my daughter, you know, she graduated. So it's really been me and her against the world, even though she's married now and she's starting her own family. And yes, I'll be a Mimi in a few weeks. She's having a little boy, but
congrats.
Yeah, thank you. But
I'm sure it's a very exciting moment.
Yeah, very, very exciting. So I guess, so AJ, so that's where I grew up, and that's where my whole spirit of entrepreneurship came to be, and finding my why with my daughter. So right when I had been in mortgage banking for a while, and then when I came to the company that I'm at PRMG, they were just starting to grow South Florida, and I asked a question with, you know, the regionals. And I said, I live on the east side of Broward. Your offices are on the west side, you know? And I said, do you have any offices over here? And they said, would you like to open one? And I said, well, what does that entail? So they tell me what it entails. And I said, oh yeah, that doesn't sound too bad. Well, so that's how I ended up opening. It's a little franchise of a bigger company. And then a year and a half into that, I got diagnosed with the breast cancer. So that's where.
So what year was it that you started that you started your own office?
Okay, I started my own office in 2014.
Okay, and then in
2015. Wait, let me think. No, 2015. Wait. I'm not really sure.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
I'm gonna be 7 years this year, so that would make it 2015. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, about 2014. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so I was probably a year and a half into this, and the branch was going really, really well. And one thing that they don't tell you here is that you have to generate all the income for even the last pencil that you buy for the office. I mean, everything has to come from your own P&L. They don't give you any money. So it was really a blessing for me because I did a really good job as far as being really good with my expenses and the money and hiring people and the production. So May of 20, I started, I'm trying to think. I started, it's going to be 2014, right? Because we're in 2021, right? Yeah. So it's 7 years. Okay. Yeah. So I started that year, and then fast forward, we opened the office, I want to say that January of 2015. And then May of 2016, I got diagnosed with the breast cancer. And that's where my whole life got turned upside down.
So when you say you got diagnosed, what were you feeling at that time that you had to go see a doctor?
Well, it started out with my lower back, and I always kind of suffered from like a sciatica. And so I was in physical therapy, and I had been in physical therapy for a few months, and I wasn't getting better. So I went back to the orthopedic, and I said, listen, I've always been healthy my whole life, and I'm not getting better. So he said to me, no, it's just a little bit of arthritis. And this is where I'm just going to encourage all your listeners that you know your body best. And doctors are human beings, and humans can make mistakes, and you have to be the best advocate of your health. So at that point, I said to him, you're saying it's this, but I'm saying I know my body and I want an MRI. He refused to give me the MRI. He didn't refuse, he didn't think I needed it. At that point, I should have just gone, because this was January of 2016. So I should have gone back to my primary, and she would have definitely done it. So by the end of April, I kept feeling worse and worse and worse. And obviously the cancer was growing, and I didn't know I had breast cancer. And so I went back to my primary doctor, and I told her all my symptoms and everything. And I said to her, and then I started getting other symptoms that led to another mammogram and led to an ultrasound. And the ultrasound came back a little suspicious. So then they sent me to another doctor to do a biopsy. And that doctor was convinced that I was fine, that it was just some kind of infection. And so they did a biopsy, and she called me back a few days later to tell me that it was breast cancer. And then they did a PET scan after that. So I was actually diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer, which was really disappointing because I had always tried to really take good care of myself. But it was stage 4 because it went to the bones. It bypassed all my organs, which that was a blessing. And there's 2 types of breast cancer. And mine is a very targeted and very, it's one protocol, whether you're stage 1, 2, 3, or 4, it's one protocol. And at that point, when I would say the biggest part of my success with this illness and looking at life differently is because, number 1, my faith, and then number 2, the day I met my oncologist, the first day of what we call clinic, she said to me, you see this? That was my PET scan. And she said, this is telling me you're very sick, but you're not going to die. And I think that's the most important thing, is your relationship with your doctor, because at that point, you have nothing else other than your faith, because your life is in someone else's hands at this point, because cancer is a serious thing, So, so my journey with this started May of 2016. So it will be 5 years this year.
Yeah. So, when you were diagnosed at that time, how does like one feel about that? How did you digest that news?
Well, okay, so I'm very intuitive, I guess, and I don't know if that's just my personal walk that I have with the Lord, but I knew in my heart of heart, my dad had always told me, if the patient is sleeping and the patient is eating, the patient's not going to die. And I was sleeping and eating just fine. Okay. But also too, it's almost like watching a movie. Okay. And they're talking to you, or they're talking to this person that looks just like you, and you're in total disbelief that this is happening to you, and you have all your family around you. But what goes through your mind is not yourself. At that moment, you're not thinking about yourself. You're thinking about your family members, you know? And in particular, I was thinking about my daughter, because at that time, she didn't even have a boyfriend at that time, you know? And I was just like looking at her, and it was like me and her against the world. And I was like, oh gosh, I have to be here for her. You know, I have to see her fall in love. I have to see her get married. I have to see her have her baby. And at that point, you know, you're confident in this doctor, but at the same time, it's like a blind faith, because you're just, you know, at that point, I'm just taking it one day at a time, you know, because it becomes very, very overwhelming when you're the patient. But I will tell you, my ex-husband, he really stepped up to the plate. He took me, he was retired already. When I walked in, I'll never forget the first day of clinic, when the doctor walked in, there was my dad, my mom, my daughter, my ex-husband, and my other sister. And the doctor goes, wow, you got a lot of family here, you know? And my daughter had made up a notebook for her dad. So anytime we went to an appointment, because it's very overwhelming, you know, he would take notes and everything that the doctor wanted me to do. And I think as a patient, if you really have that blind faith and you're not sitting there investigating things on the internet, because that could really put you really down when you hear, they have all kinds of these support, I don't know, these rooms where people talk about things. And yes, it's tough, but you gotta have your own journey, you know? And I always choose to be happy and to be positive. And I don't want to hear, okay, yes, I've had bad days. There were days that I would sit there and cry, and I did not want to move on anymore. I didn't want to do the medicine anymore, you know, going through the full-blown chemo. And then I call it, God sends me angels, you know, people that I don't even know. And I'll just give you just really fast, for instance, I had gone through 3 chemos. My third one was really, really bad. I already had 10 radiations under my belt, plus this was the 3rd chemo. So every chemo builds on the other, and it's once every 3 weeks. So I had gotten very dehydrated, that from a Thursday when they gave me the medication to Monday, I had lost 9 pounds, okay? And it was just really tough. So they gave me the hydration and everything. So every day that week, I had to go to the hospital to get hydration. So one day I go in, I'm not feeling that great. This doctor comes out of nowhere. He has beautiful blue eyes, young doctor. And he says to me, Maria, I've been looking at your medical records, because you've been a patient here for a really long time. So this is not the hospital that I'm at. This is like the local hospital. And he says, you've been healthy all your life. And I'm here to tell you, you're going to make this. You're going to beat this, you know, but you got to promise me you can't come in here dehydrated like this, because it would be a tragedy that you survive the breast cancer and then you have kidney failure, or you have something wrong with your liver. And I go, huh? What are you talking about? And then he says, no, you have to stay hydrated. You have to get all the poison out of your system. Okay, so to me, that was an angel, because the light bulb went on and I said, he's right. I have to keep fighting, you know? Mm-hmm. And prior to going into the room, when I was in the waiting room, my mom would always tell the emergency room people, my daughter just had chemo, you got to put her in a separate area. She can't be around sick people. So I was really out of it. And I don't know how your viewers are going to take this, but honestly, I was in the room and I was really out of it. I see these clouds and I see a silhouette of a young woman. And she says to me, it's not your time to come. You need a fight, you know? And so the other thing, AJ, that you don't know about me is that after my daughter, Caitlin, I had another child. I carried her full term and she was stillborn. So I had to bury that child. So in my head, I believe that was my daughter that's up in heaven telling me that you need to be here for the people here. Yeah. And then the doctor walks in and then the doctor tells me I'm going to be fine and I have to keep fighting this. So I walked out of there totally motivated. And my mission was just keeping track of my water, and that was it.
You know, 2 things that I'm picking up out of this, and I wanna highlight and point out is, two things that really matter is that one is, Maria, I'm noticing from your conversation is that your positive mental attitude and a sense of optimism, and also equally important is the people that are around you. In your case, your doctor, oncologist, and this other young doctor that shared, it's very important for anybody that who we see around us that's going through some type of difficulty, is just encourage them, say something positive to them, say something nice, uplifting about others, because it takes them to the, it kind of helps relieve, just gives them that sense of confidence, and that's necessary.
Yeah.
And for you, I wanted to ask you, so when you're going through this, it's difficult, it's not easy to go to the medical appointments, and going through the chemo, it can be very difficult. How do you maintain, I know you have the external voices where somebody tells you that, hey, you got to make it through this, you're going to pull through this, and that's encouraging. But at the same time, how does one get themselves together to have that sense of optimism, because that's something that's unique about you?
Well, we have something in common. So I would watch Joel Osteen every morning, and I would watch every night. So I would have it pre-recorded, and then I would watch it, and and I also had the luxury.
I love Joel Osteen. I love Joel Osteen. Yeah.
Yes. So and I would say, this is what I would say before I turn it on and say, and I still say it to this day, okay, Lord, what is the message for the day for me? And then it's on point every single time. And it's just amazing. So basically what happened is, I would, I obviously I was home for 7 months because the chemo was really tough. It would be 10 days before I could even pick up the phone and really talk to somebody because I had no energy. So every morning, and then also another thing that I did for myself was, now you can see I'm Latina, I have the long black hair, and I wanted to maintain my person as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And trust me, I give credit to all those women that will walk around bald or walk around with some kind of head, like a tarpon type thing on their head. But for me, that was not an option. Okay. So there's the salon that is in my neighborhood. It's called Chuck Alfury, and they specialize, he's third generation. He's here in Fort Lauderdale, and he specializes in custom prosthetic cranial wigs that actually get glued onto your head. So I was not courageous enough to see myself bald. So he said to me, he showed me what the wig looked like. And I spoke to my doctor and I said, at what point will I start losing my hair? And she said, after the first treatment. And I said, oh gosh, really? And she says, yes. So I made a call to Chuck, and then he got me in right away. We ordered the wig. And I said, I don't want to be taking a shower and then all my hair is on the ground. I said, so anyway, he ordered it, and then we made the appointment a week later to go in. So he comes in, I wish he could be here right now with me. He comes in and he knew me because they just do regular hair there too. So I had been a client there, but I didn't know all the rooms were private for a reason, because he does hair pieces, not just cancer patients, but whatever hair loss problem you may have. So he walks into the room and he looks like he's ready to cry. And he says, Maria, you know what today's about? And I go, yeah, shave it off. I said, and put on the new hair. And then he told me, he goes, you're amazing. I thought you were going to sit here and fall apart on me. And I go,
you are
why?
amazing. You are amazing. Maintaining a positive mental attitude, that's tough in that. It's,
Yeah, but the thing is, they got this way, and I walked out of there just like I walked in. It was just a little shorter, but it looked just like my hair, and they blew it out for me. But that made such a big difference, because in the morning I could wake up and I would just look like myself, but except I was going through this. And then the other thing was, I would always go to the salon to get my nails done and my pedicure done, even though I was going nowhere, because it was just important for me to maintain the person that I was. I didn't want to be like under a rock, feeling sorry for myself.
Actually, I'm loving this that you're sharing that. Actually, because when you're going through something like that, a lot of times you need to do things to to just pick yourself up and say, you know what, I'm still taking care of myself. I'm still optimistic about my future, my life, how things are going to be in the future. I know I'm going to make it through this. And in that situation, you have to just do things as best as you can, to the normal as you can, and take care of yourself. And that actually makes you feel good about yourself. I'm just trying to digest at the same time as you're sharing this with me, but I'm just trying to also understand, why is that important? The reason, like you shared, is that you have to feel good about yourself. And if you're comfortable with no wig, that's fine. But if you feel like you have to do something else to take care of yourself, to feel better, positive, do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing too is, I always like to be put together. Okay. Even if I'm going to the gym at 6 o'clock in the morning, I put on my little outfit and I put on a little bit of makeup, because I'm always like, what about if I stop at the grocery store, at the gas station? And then I'm probably going to run into somebody I know. So I would always, so when I went through this, I said to myself, I'm not going to change who I am. I want to continue that. Of course, I had some days that were bad, that I couldn't even get out of bed and I was in my pajamas all day. But if I went to the hospital to get treatment, because the other thing was, when you get older, when you get into your 40s, and I got diagnosed at 52. Okay. So yes, I'm giving away my age right now. And really, to know me, most people would say, what?
Yeah.
You were sick?
You look a lot younger than that. And that's awesome.
Yeah. So, and they're like, you're going to be a grandma? Well, you're the best looking grandma I've ever met, So, but the thing was, so from the treatments, obviously I started losing weight, but you know what I did? I would go to the store and buy clothes that looked really cute on me. So then that made me feel better, because I can go into the juniors department and put on practically anything and it all fits. And who could say that when you're in your 50s, right? Mm-hmm. But obviously, after the treatments were over and I was in remission, and that's not to say, AJ, I haven't had some bumps in the road, okay? In the sense that, I'm on a maintenance medicine and, I'm constantly being monitored. So some people take what's called a chemo pill, but I take what's called, they give me this IV bag. So I go once every 3 weeks. And I pretty much live my life normally and everything. But once I got into remission, I really looked at my diet and I said, what can I clean up in my diet? So because I talked with my doctor and I said to her, I said, does sugar cause cancer? And she goes, no, bad fat in your body causes cancer, So she said, so obviously if you have too much sugar intake, like sweets or whatever, or carbohydrates that turn into sugar later, things that are like white rice, pasta, bread products. If you eat too much of that, you'll put on weight and then you could have a relapse. But I was loving how I was looking, because as time went on, the wig came off, my hair started growing back. And then Chuck and his team had this incredible protocol that as your hair grows out, then I remember the summer of 2017, my hair was growing out. So the wig became a clip-on wig. So I had short hair. So I'd go to the beach and I'd be swimming in the beach and in the pool. And then I'd go take a shower. My hair would dry in 2 seconds. And then I just clip the little wig back on, So, and I'd be ready in 30 minutes, I could be all put together. So I just took something that was a tragedy in my life and I just made it all be positive. And the other thing was Chuck, he has a lot of patients that come in that are going through similar things that I'm going through. So Chuck would ask me, can you speak to this woman? And there she was, a lot's happening to you. You haven't even begun your treatment. And then you're told you're not even going to look like yourself. All your hair is going to fall off and, probably your eyebrows, probably your eyelashes too. Just so many things happen to you. So then now, you're scared about that. And then now you're talking to this man about getting a prosthetic cranial wig and your whole family is with you. So when I walk in, I'm all put together and I tell them, yeah, I was stage 4, but you know what? That's not a big deal. I said, what hospital are you at? Sometimes they're at my hospital, which is University of Miami. And I'm like, you're in the best hands. And I said, let's just get you thinking about yourself, how you can make yourself feel better. And this is my story. Then all of a sudden you see all the smiles on the family face, the smiles on the patient, you know, and I remember when I was first diagnosed, this woman had come in to get a checkup and she was all put together, her high heels, she was a breast cancer survivor. And I said, that's what I want to look like when I'm on the other side of this, you know?
Wow.
And
you know, it sounds like, you know, listening to you, every challenge that you have had, you have turned it into a positive, even like losing weight and then, you know, wearing dresses that you really enjoy, and you know, and they're changing out your diet. You know, it's all about, you know, and I like that you shared that, because it's all about perspective, right? Perspective about, it could be seen as a negative, but it can also be seen as a positive. And you know, it's not easy, it's difficult, you know, and but still trying to make something positive out of it is almost, it's the best thing to do in that moment.
no, it is the best thing to do. And then back to my business, you know, so obviously we met through doing, you know, your mortgage, and I'm a mortgage banker and I've been doing this 19 years, and I have trained my whole family practically, because my daughter, she went under me 9 years ago. She has her own book of business. My little sister, Caroline. So my dad had a second family, and then Caroline is 27. She's younger than my daughter. So you should see those two at a networking event. This is my aunt. What do you mean she's your aunt? She's younger than you. So they try to just make it really fun. But I taught them the business, and I see them back to the whole philosophy of my father. Every generation should be better than the one before. So then I passed the baton. And you know, the greatest compliment that I got was after my daughter got married. When she got back from her honeymoon with her husband, she took me to lunch and she said, Mom, I just want to thank you. And I said, for what? And she goes, you gave me a profession that I love. And she goes, and I really bring a lot to the table and to better my family with my husband. You know, so I'm really, really extremely proud of her. But it gives me such great joy, because yes, there's a lot of money in this business, but what's more important to me is helping them achieve their goals and seeing them really fly out of the nest and seeing them grow their families and educating them. Like Caroline, she got married at 20. She has a little boy that's 6, my little nephew. So he used to come to the office before the pandemic. So every day we would make a little video, and I would teach him his little line he would say, PRMG, the better lender, you know? And he is on point, that little kid, you know? So from 5 to 6, he's just doing all these videos with me. And so he has that spirit. We always say he's just like our father, you know, and that's his grandson. So it's just nice to be able, you know, and then I have a cousin, I have another sister, just to be able to help them and help their families, you know? So it's really awesome. A legacy one day that I'll leave behind.
That is awesome. You know, when it comes to family, here's another thing. I was thinking of this today in the morning. You know, when you're dealing with something like cancer, a lot of times families don't know how to support the person either, right? Like, right. You know, like in that case, what is the approach that your family took that made you feel really good about it? And that's something that, you know, I have friends that I know, they are dealing with this. Some family member is dealing through cancer. How is the best way to support that person? A lot of times, you know, they're going through something, but instead of just knowing that, there's more that you could do. And what does that look like?
Well, I think for me, it was just knowing, number one, you know, having the peace of mind that there was someone there to help me with my appointments in the beginning. Now, when I go for my maintenance, I go by myself. But, and then also the big thing about my ex-husband helping, gave that peace of mind to my daughter so she could keep the business running, because at that point we had a lot of employees that were relying on us. So she basically ran the office, but she had that peace of mind. So it's just kind of pulling all together around the patient. But at the same time, you have to be respectful. If I'm having a bad day, you can't tell me you need to have a better day, because I'm entitled to have that bad moment. You know, it doesn't mean that bad moment's going to be forever, but at that moment, because I'll never forget when I was having that third chemo and I felt so sick, I called my ex-husband up and I said, I can't do this anymore. And he goes, but you just have a few more. And I just lost it on him. I was like, that's easy for you to say. I'm the one who's going through this. And guess what? We're not married anymore, so you can't mandate me to do this. And he's like, Maria, please, I'm begging you. You're doing so well. I'm going to be here for you. So sometimes it's like, you just have to let the patient talk and get it off their chest. And then in my own quiet moments, or my moments with, you know, the Lord, I'll sit there and I'll say, okay, I can take one more round. And, you know, the protocol that my doctor, I always say, I always tell her, I know your MO now, you know, because she doesn't in the beginning, like she'll say, like I'll ask, well, how many chemos do you think I need to have? She knows it's 6, but she says 4 to 6. So when I get to number 4, I go, oh, I'm doing so well. Can I stop? And then she's like, no, the protocol is 2 more. And she already knew that from the beginning. So basically, as you know, as the patient and with their family, it's just let them get through the day. That's it. Just get one day at a time, and just don't be so opinionated as what you think the patient should be doing. Just let them get through that day. That's all that's all I could do at that moment.
Yeah, understandable. That's so nice that you shared that. Just understanding that they are, you know, dealing with something, and then just give them that space to just be themselves. That's what it is. Okay.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to share with you about that, my daughter, she's 32, and about 2 years ago, so I was already past, you know, I was in the remission stage and stuff. One of her good friends from high school got diagnosed with Hodgkin's disease. So it's a form of blood cancer. And very young, 30, it broke my heart, you know? So one day she came to town because she's had to go through multiple treatments. I mean, I had 6, okay? I was out of work for 7 months. But some people are constantly on that chemo regimen until their protocol is over. And then she was having bone marrow transfer. So she wanted to know about the wigs. So I introduced her to Chuck Alfieri's group, and then we all got together. So I sat with her, and when you're patient to patient, it is so different, because she says to me, I said, so how are you doing? She goes, Maria, you know I'm fine. I go, I know you are. And then she goes, it's them that I worry about. And she's talking about her mother, her sister, her father, you know, and I said, I get you, because it's like your heart is so broken that you have to go through this for your family, you know? And it's funny because you worry more about them than yourself, because you're like, okay, the doctor says I'm not going to die. I just have to get through this, and let me just get through the day. But I will tell you, that little girl 2 years later went through her bone marrow. Her outlook is great, and she just got engaged.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, you know, another thing that I'm picking up talking to you here is that it's very important to maintain that positive outlook despite how things may seem in that moment, right?
Right.
And it is difficult, it's hard, it's not easy, and you know, and this is something that I haven't experienced, but I'm just learning from your experience, and this is what I pick up, is that it is difficult, it's not going to be easy, but you still have to maintain that positive attitude, positive outlook, that things are going to be better one day. And you know, can you expand a little bit more on that? How do you exactly do that, or just a few tips on how to do that when somebody's going through this?
Well, I think, okay, so the pivoting point for me is like, you really have to have a lot of courage, right? Because it's like, this is what I'm going to compare it to so people can really understand. We're in a pandemic, right? So one minute, all of our lives, we're going to work, our kids are going to school, you know, we're going to charity events, we're going to concerts, we're going to the movies. And then all of a sudden you turn on the TV, everything stops, everything is shut down. And now you're confined to your home. Okay. Now, fast forward a year later, everything's starting to open back up. Some states more quickly than others, like our state here in Florida. Mm-hmm. But that's what I compared to. My life stopped for 7 months, but everybody else's life is still going on. And then now the doctor tells you you're in remission, go back to your life. What does that look like? Right? Okay. So you know, I've always been a very, confident person, but I found myself in a place that I wasn't that confident, because now I need to find my new normal, just like all of America in the world needs to find their new normal. Okay. So the first thing was, my daughter at this point had met her future husband, and she used to spend a lot of time with me. And then she said to me, Mom, you know, I want to spend time with Mark and I want to go do this. Do you mind that I'm not going to be here this weekend or be around? Now, she had her own place, but she used to come see me all the time because she lived a mile away from me. So, of course, as a mother, you want her to have that relationship grow into something and eventually get married and have a child and all that. So I said, okay, so where does that leave me? So where that left me was, okay, I guess I better do online dating. Yes, online dating with a wig and coming out of breast cancer, right? So basically what I'm trying to say is, your confidence might be a little bit low, but I promise you, God will put the right people in your place if you do it out of, you know, I'm just going to take one day at a time. So I had to be brave. So I put myself out there, and then all of a sudden it was different this time, because now I had all these new pictures and I was really tiny and stuff. So I open up my thing and I'm like, oh my God, this is a full-time job. I have 100 people that sent me messages and that like my photos, you know, and I'm like, wow, I'm really, you know, no one really knows I ever went through this, you know? And then that was another conversation later when I met somebody, you know, sharing my story with them, because this is still a big part of my life. It isn't something, I have to live with this, okay? And I manage it really well, because, you know, I was talking to one of my really good friends the other day, and I said to her, you know, who would have ever thought? Because at one point, AJ, when I was that sick, the reason I was having lower back problems was because the cancer had gone into my hip and pelvis. So when they did the bone biopsy, you know, and I'm being really transparent here, you know, I couldn't walk after that. I had to walk with a walker. So my daughter says, one day my mom's in a walker, then she's walking with a cane, and then poof, she's back in her high heels again. But I was telling my friend, I said, what about if my bones never grow back? What about if I couldn't walk again? Like, that never even entered my head. The doctor said, we're going to do this. Your bones are going to grow back, just like when you break something, you know? So I've had so many doctors, because I've switched all my doctors to and they say to me, I look at your paperwork and I look at you, and it's like two different people. Mm-hmm. And it's how you choose to live your life. So in my head, this cancer never existed. In my head, instead of me being such a workaholic, I'm more present today. I am present. So when I'm with my family and I'm spending time with them, I'm sorry. I love my clients, but sometimes they have to wait, because you have to be present, because we don't know what tomorrow brings. I mean, yes, I'm a success story. I came out the other side, came out better. I found love again, you know, through the online dating for a few years, where I went to Europe with he's my ex-boyfriend, but we're very close. You know, we went to Europe for 22 days, you know, think about that, 22 days. I mean, the doctors tell me if you get a temperature of 100.4, you got to go to an emergency room, because we got to make sure you don't have an infection or nothing like that. So to get on a cruise line, like fly to Europe, get on a cruise line for 12 days, then disembark, and then fly to Venice, fly to Paris, and then fly home. I mean, that was a big deal. But you know what I said? I said, you know what? I'm just going to enjoy myself. I'm not going to be paranoid. The pandemic comes. I'm not going to be paranoid. I'm just going to take care of myself. I'm not worried about this pandemic. thank God, never got sick. Okay. And I'm fully vaccinated now. But the thing is this, it's the choices that you make in your life. And if anything, I hope that your listeners will remember, we're not promised tomorrow. Get your priorities straight, because if your family needs, because I think we're so busy about planning for the future and making sure we're okay for the future. Well, sometimes the future can be taken from us. So how about being present and happy with what you have?
Definitely. That's and I'm so glad I was able to talk to you today and getting to know your perspective about things. It actually made me a little emotional, to be honest with you. And that's how and I'm glad you shared that, because I know a lot of people would get, and we touched on various different things, like how families can help cope with this and how to stay optimistic and positive through the whole experience. And thank you so much for joining me here today. Before we go, anything else you would like to add, a message to people who are dealing with this, or the family members? Anything that you would like to say, please go ahead.
Well, you know what I'd like to say is, no matter what their situation is, this is just something that happens to us. It doesn't have to define us in a negative way. Mm-hmm. And just try to just be joyful in the moment, because one thing I didn't tell you, I did lose a sister to a different form of cancer like 14 years ago. And I remember I spent a lot of time with her last few months on this earth. And she would just sit there and say, look how beautiful the sky is, and look how beautiful the ocean is, and look how beautiful just the world is. And I think we're just so busy that I think actually the pandemic has been good for all of us, because I think it's brought a lot of the families,
slowed things down a little bit for us.
Yes, and bring families back together to the table and break bread. And that's really what's most important here. And just hug the people that you love. I know you're in a pandemic, but if it's your immediate circle, hug them. You just never know. And it's one of those things, I like being successful. I like being financially independent, but if you don't have your health, you don't have anything,
Yeah, definitely.
And just take care of yourself, and just try to, if you've been thinking about, I got to lose those few extra pounds, lose them, get out there, start walking, do something for yourself, change your diet, and just do a little bit at a time, and you'll see the results.
Got it. Thank you so much, Maria. Thank you so much for joining us today on this. I really appreciate you for coming on and sharing everything that, your journey, your experience. Thank you so much.